Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist as well as a body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the behavior and body language of Ali Abulaban. He was recently found guilty for the murder of his wife Anna Abulaban as well as her friend Rayburn Barrow. Before we get started with this, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. So what we're looking at today is the sentencing phase. Let's jump right in. One of the first things you notice about him is that he is very expressive. He tends to feel a lot, I presume, and he shows it as well.
Which was the subject of the questionable conduct by the prosecutor that we believe.
Now you'll notice this right here. This is someone who very likely has a problem with control. Check this out.
Of the questionable conduct by the prosecutor.
So he's giving cues to the attorney, trying to make sure that she uses the specific words he wants her to say. So to me, that implies definitely a degree of a controlling nature.
That we believe rises to the level of prosecutorial misconduct. When we returned the next day, we provided a transcript.
So then after they said prosecutorial misconduct, you see he licks his lips. Watch this right here.
When we returned.
So that's an excitement. He's feeling a lot here. Maybe he thinks this is a compelling argument. The idea that he's going to maybe find a new way to get a new trial, something like that. So I think right here you're seeing a lot of excitement, a lot of engagement by him.
That remedy that we felt was not proper.
If you've seen other videos of mine, you're probably used to me pointing this out, but he does notice the cameras, and that's no shock. He's somebody that seems to like the cameras. He's someone that likes to perform. So there's no doubt that he's thinking about the fact that there are cameras on him right now.
Mr. Abulaban, the defense elected instead of that remedy that we felt was not proper and didn't fully address the issue, and instead the jury was left with the impression that as the prosecutor.
Now check this out right here. Now I've talked about this in a lot of videos that when we show contempt, it's the only emotion we show on one side of the mouth. It tends to look something like that. So watch this right here.
And instead, the jury was left with the impression that
So the jury was left with this impression, and then it seems to be that he has a contemptuous reaction to that.
The prosecutor stood up with a giant binder full of questions that she was marking off to provide to the jury. Ms. Brast told us at the time that this.
You know, I already pointed out that he looks at the camera, but man, he looks at the camera a lot. He really seems to be thinking a lot about how he's appearing right now.
This was raised during the trial, and again in removing papers that she reads the transcripts of Mr.
5 years per victim. Mr. Edwards had a lot of very specific information about the defendants, not only his defense.
See, he is once again somebody who likes to perform. So when the prosecutor is talking about the various facts of the case, he's going to react very strongly to make sure everybody can see it, to show how much he disagrees. He's not going to let the facts stand for themselves. He wants to make sure that he's putting on the best show that he can.
A lot of very specific information about the defendants, not only his defense of heat of passion, but also details about the
See, he reacted that way, then looked at the camera to make sure that it got it.
killings. It was very apparent to me in reading the transcripts.
See, the eye roll, head shake. So another big performance. We see a lot of criminals do this type of thing. And it tends to be when people want control, they're going, I want to be in control of what everybody thinks and feels. Therefore, I'm going to show you exactly how I feel about this. I'm going to make a big deal out of it. So this, once again, leads into that idea that he is a big performer when it comes to these things. He was very performative when he did the actual trial, when he was on the stand, all of those things.
About the defendants, not only his defense of heat of passion, but also details about the killings. It was very apparent to me in reading the transcripts and listening to those calls that the defendant provided this. And so it's perfectly reasonable for me to ask those questions.
Bullshit. Yeah, you're bullshit.
See, and now he's having an outburst. So this is somebody who is not going to go down without a fight. He wants to perform as much as he can. He's going to interrupt. He's going to be rude. He's going to be loud. He wants to take control of the courtroom. And in some ways it works right now, at least, because all eyes are on him. We are seeing exactly how he feels, or at least how he wants us to think that he feels about these situations.
It's perfectly reasonable for me to ask those questions.
Bullshit. Yeah, you're bullshit.
All right, let me.
And then you see a look of anger when somebody in the gallery responded to his response. Then he looks mad. Then he's trying to stare them down. He's obviously being very inappropriate right now.
It makes something clear right now.
I'm sorry, son.
If there's any disturbance, you will be put outside. All right? That happens only once.
See, he disturbed first. Somebody else did. And now he's looking at them as though they did something wrong.
Once it's happened now, it will not happen again. And that includes you, Mr. Abulaban. I don't want. Thank you.
See, I didn't say anything. Now, this is an interesting piece of body language right here.
Now it will not happen again. And that includes you, Mr. Abulaban. I don't.
So, first of all, it wasn't true that he didn't say anything. He absolutely did say something. But now he's raising his eyebrows to bring attention to his face, and he's got his hands up like this. Now, interestingly, we oftentimes associate this hand gesture when people are being honest, going, hey, it wasn't me, I didn't do anything. But we know for a fact he's lying because he did just say something. We have it on film. We watched it 2 seconds ago. So it goes to show that he's pretty effective when it comes to his ability to lie, actually. Now we're going to watch part of a tense exchange during the victim's statements.
Sorry, sorry, Your Honor. What did they do to you? They didn't do anything to you. You know Anna Marie's not. It's not gonna go cheat
right.
if you didn't cheat first.
All right. Ma'am, if you're not going to be able to control yourself,
Sorry, Your Honor.
I'm going to have to
This-
excuse you. Mr.
So you can see this facial expression right here.
All right. Ma'am.
So you see the sneer, the way the mouth points down. That's disgust. That typically is a look of disgust. So as she's yelling at him, he's getting to perform, which he probably loves because he seems to like to be able to cry, to perform, to yell. So the idea that he gets to react to that, I'm sure, is very exciting, but he's left with a look of disgust.
If you're not going to be able to control yourself,
Sorry, Your Honor.
I'm going to have to excuse you. Mr. Abulaban,
This feeling is like
please.
make me sick.
For their grandmother, my mother, who is now 91 years old, who to this day believes that Ray died of a heart attack because we had to keep it away from her, the horrible, horrible murder that he died.
Look at the intensity when he hears that she believes that he died of a heart attack.
That Ray died of a heart attack.
He looked at her fast and intense, and it may be that he wants credit for what he's done. The idea that there are people that aren't sharing in this misery, the idea that it was shielded from, it sounds like Rayburn's grandmother, that she wasn't ever told that he was murdered. But he looks almost shocked and looks very intense about that fact.
He believes that Ray died of a heart attack because we had to keep it away from her, the horrible, horrible murder.
And look, him pursing his lips, that's a look of stress.
That he died by. I couldn't make myself, like I said, see him in his coffin. I will hang on to that sweet image of him making over his mother, his grandmother. He was the perfect nephew, the perfect brother, the perfect citizen. He was a great man, something you will ever, ever know what it's about, Ali Abulaban.
This doesn't seem to be something that actually bothers him that much.
How many victims did your cowardness leave behind? Let's start with your own family. The disgrace of being related to a criminal that will hopefully rot in jail. Your mother, who will see you die day by day in prison. You won't be dead like Ray, but you will also not be.
All right, so after hearing that, now he's taking in deep breaths, trying to calm down. That seems to have actually gotten to him a little bit more.
Day in prison. You won't be dead like Ray, but you will also not be living.
Losing a loved one to senseless and unnecessary violence isn't something that anyone should have to go through. And yet, it has happened. And here I am being the reason why multiple families have had to experience it. I can't say that I'm proud of that. Throughout this trial, many horrific things were displayed. And as we sat here for weeks having to endure some of the most disturbing audio recordings and video footage, I sat there in silence, listening, watching, and being reminded of the worst moments of my life.
So right now we're hearing about why we should feel bad for him, because it's so hard probably for somebody who's committed these kinds of acts to really truly be empathic at all. Oftentimes their statements fall flat like this because they just don't have the capacity of any real depth here. So he has to include that people should feel bad to him because he was having to hear about the worst moments of his life. He's not going to understand. Most people just don't care.
Recordings and video footage, I sat there in silence, listening, watching and being reminded of the worst moments of my life. Having to hear myself say some of the most vile, shocking, and hateful
Having to hear myself say these things. Once again, such a self-focus.
things to the woman I love was not easy. In fact, I couldn't help but at times close my eyes and cover my ears. Because that's not who I am. My behavior.
Once again, it's so focused on feel bad for me because look what I went through in this trial. It was so hard on me.
Because that's not.
And then he raises his eyebrows to make sure you hear that's not who I am, because this is really about him, or at least I suppose what he's saying is really focused on him.
Who I am. My behavior was disgusting and completely unacceptable. But even so, in those 3 days that I took the stand, I was able to share and say a lot of things, except the one thing I wanted to say the most. I am so incredibly sorry to each and every one of you who have been affected by this. I cannot imagine the pain that I've caused your families. I saw the look on all your faces and the tears in your eyes, and I hate that I'm the reason for it.
So watch this right here. So see, is covering the mouth. That could mean one of two things. One, it's either that it's trying not to say something, or it could be that he's sort of practicing a reaction, a shocked reaction, something like that. So it's interesting that you see him do that.
On that day of October 21st, 2021, I was in the worst physical and mental state of my life. I was sick, suffering from an untreated severe mental illness that was combined with a crippling drug addiction, which put me in a state of a drug-induced psychosis. My response in that moment was an unintended, impulsive reaction against my better judgment.
All right, so we did hear a brief moment of, I'm so sorry to have seen the tears in your eyes and it's awful what's happened. However, 90% of this is really focused on him.
To the discovery of Ray's romantic involvement with my wife. And for that, I'm sorry.
And see, and now it goes back to how angry he is at the victims, and it sounds like, given his tone, that he feels that maybe his behavior was justified. Listen to this again right here.
Intended impulsive reaction against my better judgment. To the discovery of Ray's romantic involvement with my wife.
See the way he said my wife? So it really does sound like that he thinks that his behavior was justified.
And for that, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that in that moment I was not mentally strong enough to control myself.
See, so it's Ray's fault that this happened. That's the implication. At least that's how I hear what he's saying right now.
I'm sorry that my horrendous action that day resulted in the undeserved deaths of Rayburn Barone and Anna Marie Abulaban.
See the anger in his face right now, the irritation? Somebody is disturbing his soliloquy. Somebody's getting in the way of his performance. Doesn't like that.
Anna Marie Abulaban. My partner, my best friend, the mother of my daughter, and the love of my life. And I would get on my knees and beg Anna for forgiveness. Forgiveness for becoming distracted. For letting my anxiety.
So he still seems obsessed with her. The way that he talks about it, it still feels and sounds disturbing to me.
And my insecurities affect my thoughts and my behavior towards Anna and towards her friend. Forgiveness for using cocaine as a remedy and becoming addicted because of it. My beloved daughter. Amira, when you're old enough to see this, please don't blame yourself. None of this is your fault. Your mom loved you so much, and I love you so much. You are the strongest girl I've ever known, and I'm so proud.
Okay, so this is sort of an odd statement. Don't blame yourself. This is not one of the situations where people would ever blame themselves. So it's just a weird thing to say. But once again, it's a performance. He seems to be trying to get the waterworks going. He seems to be trying to make these dramatic statements, but none of it really makes a lot of sense, if I'm being frank.
You are the strongest girl I've ever known, and I'm so proud to be your father. I'm sorry for what my foolish actions have costed you. From what's been taken from you. I'm sorry that now You not only had to grow up without your mother, but now you have to grow up without your father too.
He wanted to make sure the cameras caught that one.
You have to grow up without your mother, but now you have to grow up without your father too. I'm ashamed.
So we're going to go ahead and stop with his statement. It just continues to ramble for a bit, but I do want to go back and just to remind you of the most emotional, intense part of this entire statement. I just want you to hear it again.
To the discovery of Ray's romantic involvement with my wife. And for that, I'm sorry.
So that continues to be the single most authentic moment we've seen from him, which is that he still feels what appears to be very angry about this. Now let's jump ahead to the judge actually sentencing Ali Abulaban.
But he shot Ray first. Shot him in the head in an attempt to kill. You don't shoot people in the head unless you want to kill them. And in front of Anna. That was deliberate. He wanted her to see it. Very cruel. He took photos immediately afterwards. Who does that? He calls his mother. He had 3 days on the stand.
I talk oftentimes about how liars like props. So right now he has this tissue using as a prop to sort of get in between his actual reaction to this and the frustration of that the judge is just calling him out and the reality of everything that he actually did.
He calls his mother. He had 3 days on the stand to explain his actions. He explained them. And the jurors came up again with the only reasonable verdict, which is a first-degree verdict. They also found, because there was 2 deaths, that this was multiple murder under Penal Code Section 190.2A3.
See, he's trying to hide some natural reactions here. Watch his hand.
They also found, because there was 2 deaths, that this was multiple murder under Penal Code Section 190.2A3.
So I think he's trying at this point to just sit and listen, but he tends to react so strongly, he's having to inhibit that somewhat.
The next thing this court has to consider is the gun enhancements. In the state of California, the legislature has both slowly and quickly changed.
Once again, trying to show everybody that he doesn't approve of this. This is the control he can have in this situation, is how he reacts, so he's trying to use that.
And I don't think that any of these crimes were connected, in fact, to his mental health or even his substance abuse. He was over.
Now see how still he's sitting right now? When you hear that, when you hear what the judge just said, that feels threatening because all of a sudden he knows this is not going in my favor. Nothing about substance abuse, mental health, any of that stuff is working at all. And so he's freezing right now. One of the rare moments you see him freeze.
Over 26. It did involve intimate partner violence, but he was the one that was committing the violence on her. Any tears that he's cried in this courtroom have been for himself. They are not for Ray and Anna. It's just, that's the reality.
And at this point, there's no other way to react other than to just not let people see your reaction.
Fears the consequences, as he should, of his actions. But as he sits here today, I don't know if he's really sorry. I have serious reservations about it. I know he's sorry about the consequences of going to prison for the rest of his life. But I can't say that I...
See, he just said, "Are you effing kidding me?" and then looked at the camera afterwards. He can only block himself for so long before he has to show his reactions again.
For the rest of his life. But...
wants to make sure everybody caught that.
I can't say that I think he's sorry for having killed these 2 innocent human beings. He's a very selfish person.
When you put on a mask and you want people to just see that, when people don't buy it or they see through it, it can cause rage, it can cause anger. And right now, hearing the judge, who's in total control of this situation, tell somebody who wants to be in total control, "I see right through you," that is not going to feel good to him. That is, I mean, once again, look at this look of disgust right here. It's starting to creep up on his face.
The defendant on count 1 will be sentenced to life without the possibility of probation via Penal Code Section 1190.2, Parent A, Parent 3. Consecutive to that will be 25 years to life on the gun enhancement under Penal Code Section 12022.53D.
And you can see right now, just sitting, not reacting. He tried to react earlier. He tried to put on a little bit of a show. You see him cussing at his attorney and reacting to everybody. But the judge didn't give it any attention, which is actually the best thing you can do for somebody like him, is that he wants to be noticed. He wants you to call out the things that he's doing. He wants to create a scene. So the fact that the judge is just continuing to move forward and do his thing and say what he needs to say is probably the most frustrating thing you could do to Ali right now. So we'll go ahead and stop here. As we got to see today, Ali Abulaban tends to be very dramatic. He wants everybody to see exactly how he feels. He has strong reactions. And we also saw somebody who certainly didn't seem to have a very authentic apology to anybody in the courtroom. Hopefully this has helped you better understand some of his behavior and his body language. And if you have anything else you want me to check out, please let me know in the comments below. I didn't actually cover the trial on my channel, so if there are things from that you'd like me to check out, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.